You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning. It's Catholic Chicago, WNDZ, 750 AM, 312-255-8408. You can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. This is Mark Teresi here, and I'm sitting in for Father Greg, who has a previous commitment this morning. Welcome to Catholic Chicago. Before we begin our very, very interesting program, I want to share two bits of information. One is yesterday, Father Greg and I were at the funeral mass for Father Ray Cleese at St. Cletus in LaGrange. Beautiful tribute to him, great priest of the Archdiocese. Keep him in your prayers. And today, Father Pat Boyle, who was a great, great professor at Mundelein Seminary, Vietnam veteran, chaplain in Vietnam, is going to be buried from the seminary this morning. So keep Father Boyle also in your prayers. One other thing, since I'm here and Greg's not here to say don't talk about this, our 2-year-old James Mark had his birthday party, and it was so cute because as we're leaving, I'm hugging his dad, and all of a sudden he grabs our knees. He's hugging us. The three of us were hugging. That's a grandpa moment, so please indulge me. Now, our show today is a great show. The Mass of Healing for those suffering with addiction will take place Wednesday, November 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving. Father Ryan Brady, Associate Pastor of Our Lady of the Ridge and St. Linus Parish in the Chicago Ridge and Oak Lawn communities, joins us this morning to talk about addiction and recovery. The Mass of Healing is the result of Father Brady seeing both the addicted and their families struggling post-pandemic. And he hopes to bring the actively addicted, the families of the addicted, and those recovering from addiction, to the same place to pray for God's grace and healing touch. Good morning, Father Ryan. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, we could have had the show yesterday when we ran into each other at Holy Name. Holy Name.
That's right.
Well, tell people first, before we get into this, has to come from part of your story. So what's your story in terms of your vocation journey?
Yeah, so I started seminary right out of high school. And I went straight from high school, and I left at 20 years old. Oh. And the reason I left was even at that young age, I was struggling with addiction to alcohol. And I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I was just doing what young people do. Mm-hmm. But it became undeniable as I began to live my life in my 20s as a younger man, that I've got a problem. And when I was 30 years old, I said, I can't live this way anymore. I was miserable. I was afraid to live, and I was afraid to die. And the only thing that I had left, and this is really kind of the nature of addiction, the only thing that I had left that I could rely upon was the thing that was killing me, was the actual alcohol. And it was terrifying, and something had to change. So I began to fall back on what I knew from the seminary, what I learned so long ago. And I began to pray the rosary every day. I began to go to adoration. I began to go to meetings to meet other men who struggled with alcohol the way I did.
And how old were you at that point?
I was 30.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my life's plan, my vocation, really it comes from that place of deep hurt, but really it comes from healing that comes from it. I would say that my priesthood didn't lead me to sobriety. My sobriety is what freed me to live my life of faith. My sobriety led me to understand where God's at in my life. My sobriety let me hear God's words. And it's what led me to the priesthood. It wasn't long after that where I began to hear God's voice in a clear way. Mm-hmm. And I realized that all along my life was really directed towards priesthood. And God in his infinite wisdom brought me back to the seminary, and here I am.
Now, it's interesting because Father Ryan and I knew you when I would call my friend Judy Salikas over at Catholic Charities, and you had worked. How did you get involved at Charities there? And was that part of the path?
It certainly was, yeah. So I said I would do what God asked of me, and I didn't know where it was going to take me, but I said, Lord, I know that you've begun this process of healing, and I'll go where you asked me to go. And I was walking down the streets in the city, and someone was calling out my name, and he offered me a job at Holy Name.
Oh.
And I was working at Holy Name. And not long after that, a position came open in fundraising at Catholic Charities. And I applied, and that's how I ended up at Catholic Charities.
What did you do at Holy Name?
So I was a sacristan for large events and for the weekends and such like that. So It was wonderful. And here I am, a 30-year-old man, and they says, would you be comfortable giving up every Saturday night? Mm-hmm. And I thought, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I realized all the things I used to do on a Saturday night were unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And they were things I couldn't do anymore because of my path of recovery. And I said, Lord, look, you filled this void now in my life. I have to take it. So I did. And that led me to not only, witnessing the sacraments and the beauty of the sacraments, but also it led me to Catholic Charities, where I was able to witness the spiritual and corporal works of mercy every single day. So I'm really grateful to Judy for teaching me a lot while I was there. I'm grateful to Monsignor Michael Bolin, mm-hmm. who was a great mentor. And I'm really grateful to Deacon Stan Strom, who was a mentor of mine at the cathedral. So I owe a lot to all of them.
Now, so that vocation decision, what was your feeling in that moment? Was there trepidation? Was there a calmness about moving to the seminary? What about and you were in recovery at that point, correct?
I had been sober for a number of years by then.
Yeah, and probably you would be a sounding board for some folks in the seminary too, who are dealing with what you were dealing with years past. So how did that happen? I mean, did you just jump in?
Well, I had people saying to me, you'd be a great priest. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, well, you don't know me that well. Oh. I had struggled with alcohol and addiction. And the other thing that would pop into my mind was, well, I've been there and I've tried that when I was in college. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is God was speaking through those people. And yeah, I had been there, and yeah, I had tried that. But my heart wasn't capable of offering itself mm-hmm. because of addiction, the way that God needed it to. And when I began to realize that these people were right, God was calling me to be a mm-hmm. priest, I found myself very peacefully moving towards the idea. Mm-hmm. I sat down with the vocation director, Father Francis Bitterman.
Oh, sure.
And I said, Father, this is what I'm thinking. I think the Lord's calling me to priesthood. But before we dive into this, I want to tell you my story. And we sat down at a restaurant not too far from the Quigley Center. And over lunch, I just told him everything, mm-hmm. everything, warts and all. And he looked at me and he was really shocked. And he said, listen, Ryan, I don't see a single thing that can keep you from the priesthood in your life. He says, but all of those things that you shared with me today, even the most painful and difficult, they aren't hindrances to your priesthood, but they're benefits and assets to your life as a priest. He says, so let's move forward. And that's what we did.
Well, because one of the dangers, I think, for folks who look at priests they think they're perfect. And in some ways that pedestal is a hindrance to many priests because your humanity cannot come through. Now, so you're ordained. Your first assignment this Our Lady of the Ridge St. Linus Parish? Is that your first?
That's my first assignment. Yeah. So I was ordained in May of 2021, and I've been assigned here since. It's just been a wonderful place.
Now, tell me about, before we get into the actual program that you're talking about. So, were you involved then? Is that a merged parish? Those are merged parishes then?
They are. They merged my first day, July 1st, 2021.
Well, how was that? How was it?
You know what? I don't know any different. So it worked well for me.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's been a great process of just kind of folding these communities into each other so that they very comfortably begin to meet each other and know each other, respect each other and love each other. It takes time. And there's a lot of mixed emotions and feelings. But when we realize that we're all sons and daughters of Christ, we're all sons and daughters of God our Father in heaven, wounds become healed, ruffled feathers become smoothed out, and really love in the church and Christ wins the day.
Now, as we'll talk about the event after our break, I want to talk about it at length. But prior to that, how public are you in terms of your story with the parishes that you're involved with?
So I don't hide it, but I don't broadcast it. I just want people to feel comfortable knowing that if they've got a problem, they can find somebody to get help with that problem.
Do you find
there was a great? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask. Do you find that people are finding you with these issues of addiction?
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah.
There's not a mass that I celebrate where I don't look out and I see someone in recovery in the pews.
Wow.
Yeah. So the people are out there who are recovering and who have recovered and have many years of sobriety, and that's a real overlooked fact in our world. A lot of people suffer from addiction and they feel that it's a death sentence, and it is in a lot of cases, and it very well can be. But the fact of the matter is recovery is not only possible, but it's possible for you. It's possible for each and every person who suffers from addiction. I've seen many, many, many lives saved, and it's a beautiful thing. So I'm open, and I don't hide it. I had a great priest mentor when I was in the seminary who was retired and a resident at my home parish, who was a hero of mine, is a hero of mine. I go and visit him often now at All Saints Cemetery and ask for his help and assistance. But he told me that his spiritual life as a priest and as a man in recovery was one of the Eucharist, one of love for the people, and one of love for his sobriety. And he was able to help people and save lives just by being open and saying, look, here's my problem and here's what I've done to help myself by finding the help of others. And people went to him and they knocked on the rectory door and said, look, I know you had a problem and I have one too. Help me.
Beautiful. Now, on that note, that kind of sets the stage for our next segment, talking about this event that you're going to be championing through St. Linus, Our Lady of the Ridge. And I think as we look at this event in our next segment, you're onto something in terms of a need for the Archdiocese. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. WNDZ, 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408. Or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Mark Tracy here with Father Ryan Brady. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Join Catholic Charities on Friday, December 2nd for the 33rd Annual Spirit of St. Nicholas Ball at the Chicago Hilton. The Spirit of St. Nicholas Ball is one of the most elegant galas of the holiday season in Chicago, and proceeds provide critical funding for our programs and services into the new year. Families, friends, and work colleagues make a tradition out of gathering at this extraordinary black tie event to celebrate the Christmas season. Enjoy an opening reception, gourmet meal, and live entertainment courtesy of the Ken Arlen Orchestra, all in support of Catholic Charities. Don't miss this special night for a great cause on Friday, December 2nd. To purchase tickets for the Spirit of St. Nicholas Ball, visit catholiccharities.net/events or call 312-948-6963. That's 312-948-6963.
There is no doubt this life is short. It is in you I trust, to spread your truths, your goodness, and love. It is you who will give a leader to our church. Who will fill these shoes?
We are hiring. Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Chicago is looking for mission-driven individuals who want to help make a positive difference in the lives of people in need throughout Cook and Lake counties. Be part of a diverse, talented team of professionals in the largest human services organization in the Midwest. We are dedicated to helping people chart a more stable, happier future for themselves, and we accompany anyone in need, regardless of faith, gender, race, or ethnicity. Competitive salaries and generous benefits add to the satisfaction you'll have every day knowing that you're helping us amplify our impact in Chicago. To see our list of employment opportunities, visit catholiccharities.net.
We're back. WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408, or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. We're with Father Ryan Brady. We're going to now talk about the Mass of Healing for those suffering with addiction. It's going to take place Wednesday, November 23rd, day before Thanksgiving. The Mass is the result of Father Brady seeing both the addicted and their families struggling post-pandemic. You're bringing everybody together. You want to bring the addicted. You want to bring those who are living with the addicted. You want to bring those who are healed or healing from addiction together. Where did this idea come from?
So last year, I was my first Thanksgiving as a priest, and the night before Thanksgiving has really traditionally become a binge drinking night, a night of overdoing it. And I remembered that. And I remembered feeling that isolation and that loneliness that comes with addiction. So I went into my church that night, and I celebrated Mass for those who are suffering from addiction. A lot of them would be out overdoing it that night. And I posted it on my social media, and the response was overwhelming. I'm a guy who has been going to meet people in recovery and families in recovery in my community for the extent of my sobriety. And yet so many people who I did not know had addiction in their families were reaching out. Hundreds of people, literally. My father was an alcoholic, and this is an elderly person who hasn't had their father in their life physically for decades, and they were still heartbroken by what the disease had done to their family. I began to realize that there was a need to bring addiction out of the shadows. And I said, next year I'm going to do this again, and let's throw the doors open and let's bring people together, because addiction is not only a disease of compulsion or what have you. it's a disease of isolation, and not just isolation for the person who's addicted, but isolation for the families who feel like they have to hide that addiction from the world outside. It's really painful, addiction, and the biggest wounds and the most pain are emotional, and to bring people together to realize that addiction it's not a moral failure. You see, it's a disease, and we're going to come together and we're going to pray together. We're going to put people who suffer from addiction and people who have recovered from addiction in the same room, and let's pray together, and let's know who we are so that we can find help with each other.
Yeah, I remember when I was at St. Paul of the Cross in Park Ridge, Lutheran General Hospital had a dive-in for those who are living with addicted folks, and a minister could come in. So I spent a weekend there, and they went through the different titles, and I'm a fixer. I want to fix, and you can't fix it. And the other piece that I learned there was the disease concept of alcohol. Now, I'm sure it's different now in medical school, but so many times it was misdiagnosed as a disease because they only spent 4 8 hours in their whole medical training on the disease of alcoholism. So how do you're doing it the day before Thanksgiving. How, look at everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people have relatives that are at their holiday celebration and, are become the focal point of the celebration because of their drinking. How do you work with people on that one?
Well, I would say that recovery from addiction is really done one day at a time. And to be honest with you, the day after Thanksgiving is just another day. And if I can make it through that 24 hours sober, I can make it through that 24 hours sober. And what a great success. For someone who's addicted to drugs or alcohol or overeating or gambling or what have you, any day without indulging in that compulsion, any day without diving into that addiction, it's a rousing success. And it's a miracle. It's more than a success. It's a miracle. And the fact of the matter is that there are hundreds, if not thousands of people out there who are cheering for you and are praying for you. And you may not know them ever, and you may never cross paths with them, but there are people who are praying for those who suffer from addiction. And it's a miracle to see these things happen where someone's life is freed from the compulsion to drink. And then the interior mind is healed. Addiction really is the medication to what's really going on inside you. I didn't drink because I wanted to drink. I drank because I was worried about things and I couldn't stop it. And addiction really became my medicine. So when I pulled back that alcohol, I had harmed a lot of people, people who were strangers and people who I loved. Addiction is not romantic, and neither is recovery. There was a lot of hard work to heal my wounds and to try to heal the wounds of those whom I've harmed. And I surrounded myself with a group of men who've helped me through that. And they drank like I did. They suffered like I did. And they recovered like I wanted to recover. And I found the right place and I found the right group. And what's ironic is that I was 3 days sober when I walked into the little conference room over here at St. Linus Church. And I found a group of guys that I wanted to get sober with. And they taught me how to live my life without alcohol. And I'd gone there every single Sunday since, just about. Every single Sunday since, just about. And God, in his infinite wisdom and with his wonderful sense of humor, sent me to that very place for my first assignment as priesthood. Isn't it something? So now my office is 50 paces from the place that I learned how to be a man sober. So it's a wonderful thing.
Beautiful. Now, let's make sure people know this is a Mass of Healing for those suffering. It's on Wednesday, November 23rd. Location and time?
Sure. So our church is at 10300 Lawler. That's 103rd, just west of Cicero Avenue in Oak Lawn. The Mass will be on November the 23rd. It'll be at 7 p.m. And it's an opportunity for everybody to come together and pray. And then there's going to be a little gathering afterwards just so that we can socialize and chat. The community of people who are recovering from addiction, they're a good group of people and a close-knit people, and they're not who you'd imagine they'd be. And the other thing is, there are all sorts of people who you wouldn't necessarily think would otherwise mix in company, and yet here they are, good friends, because people who have suffered alike can come together with compassion and joy and celebrate recovery. I've been in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous in the afternoon, and there are people who were homeless, and there were rock stars who were selling out the United Center, putting chairs back after the meeting. And I looked at it and I thought, this is really something miraculous, where God has brought a place for everybody to come together, from people selling out the United Center to the people who really don't even have a home to go to. And yet all we want there is the best for each and every one of us. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, is inside the meetings of groups of men and women who really look for hope and healing in their lives. And
many of them do become sponsors for people. The message is you're not alone. Before we end and invite people one more time, give us a little tidbit of your homily for that night.
So it's going to be a homily of hope, because there is a lot to hope for. And in disease of addiction, it cons you into believing there's nothing left to be hopeful for. The evil one is a great liar, and the evil one uses addiction to suppress our hope. And look, I'm no prohibitionist. I don't want to remove alcohol from the world, but this is the truth. I just don't want people to lose their will. I don't want people to lose their dignity. I don't want people to lose their job. I don't want people to lose their family. I don't want people to lose their life. And I've seen in active addiction, people lose all of those things.
You're absolutely right.
But I've also seen people in sobriety reclaim them all.
Exactly.
And that's the hope.
Well, and your message is a message of hope and healing. Why don't you do your best invitation to folks as we wrap this up today?
Yeah, so this is a Mass that's open to everybody. I think that each and every one of us as brothers and sisters in Christ can come together and pray for those brothers and sisters around us who sometimes suffer silently, that may be next to us and we don't know. We can pray for these people who suffer from addiction. And it's the best thing. It's the kindest thing. It's the most charitable thing we can do. But then again, if you're suffering, this is a place to come and be healed by God's grace. And this is a place to come and be loved by God. And this is a place to come to and break free from the isolation that addiction really is.
And give them the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, November 23rd, and location and time.
Sure. So we are meeting at St. Linus Church of Our Lady of the Ridge in St. Linus Parish. It's on 103rd and Lawler in Oak Lawn. And the Mass is on November the 23rd. It's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, November 23rd at 7 p.m.
Wonderful. Well, I'd like to thank Father Ryan Brady, who's Associate Pastor of Our Lady of the Ridge and St. Linus Parish. What a wonderful testimony. I think you found the mission in your priesthood, and it's going to be a great gift to so many. So God bless you
very much.
And thank you for being with us, Father Ryan. Don't forget Wednesday, November 23rd, 7 o'clock, St. Linus, the Mass of Healing for those suffering with addiction. This is WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408, or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Mark Tracy here. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Catholic Charities' 75th Annual Celebration of Giving is underway in support of those who are struggling to make ends meet every day. Individuals, families, colleagues, neighbors, parishioners, and friends purchase thousands of gifts and basic necessities to ensure Catholic Charities' clients and their families have a joyful Christmas morning. There are many ways to get involved, including online wish lists that make giving easier than ever before. If you can join us in this special Chicago Christmas tradition as volunteers and donors, please email us at cog@catholiccharities.net. That's cog@catholiccharities.net. Or call 312-655-7401 in Cook County and 847-782-4210 in Lake County. Thank you for helping us spread Christmas cheer this year throughout Cook and Lake counties.
I am a seminarian.
The church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
The cemetery ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
We're back. WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago. 312-255-8408. Or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi here sitting in for Father Greg. Just one more time, an invitation. The Mass of Healing for those suffering with addictions will take place Wednesday, November 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving, 7 p.m. At St. Linus Church. We thank Father Ryan Brady for sharing his story, powerful story of recovery and healing, and hope people take advantage of that invitation. Our second half of our show, the collection for the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, takes place at Masses in your parish on the weekend of November 19th and 20th. For the second half of today's program, we speak with Danielle Baudet, the program coordinator with CCHD in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Danielle's invited a couple of people to speak about how the groups and organizations they represent benefit from the support of Catholic Campaign for Human Development. Good morning. Welcome, Danielle. Welcome to Catholic Chicago. And is that Barbara that we see there?
Yes.
Barbara Manley, welcome also to Catholic Chicago. Thank you for being here. I'm sure Father Greg's first question would be your journey to this position at Catholic Campaign for Human Development. Your heart has to be there. What led you to this spot?
Yeah, it's been such a joy to be here. I just came from graduating from Notre Dame with my master's in nonprofit administration.
Beautiful.
And I figured what better of a place to kind of combine all that I love, which is faith, the Lord, and people, and in service. So this is really just kind of the perfect next step in my career. And it's been such a joyful 4 months. I mean, I started in July, and so I've learned so much has happened. So I'm just happy to be here.
Now, where's home for you? Danielle?
I'm from the Twin Cities area, so I graduated from the University of Minnesota. Go Gophers!
And Father Greg would ask, are
And
you a Vikings fan?
funny enough, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm from the right on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin on the Wisconsin side. So for some reason, my loyalty is with the Packers, but
Oh.
I stand by that.
Oh.
I stand by that.
I'll relay that to Father Greg. He'll be a bit disappointed as a Bears fan. Anyway, so let's talk about give people, people hear it, but they probably don't know the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. What is it? What have you learned in your time there, that the impact of this collection and program?
Yeah, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development is the church's national anti-poverty initiative. We raise funds across the nation that impact our local communities. It's really, someone called it the best kept secret of the Catholic Church, and hopefully throughout my time here, I can make it so that it's not a secret anymore and so that everyone can know about it.
That's great. That's great. And then Barbara is joining us as your guest. Barbara, your background?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. So I am here as a community leader and volunteer with United Power for Action and Justice, which works here in the city of Chicago and Cook County to really build up community leaders and address a lot of pressing social issues and inequities that exist in our society.
Now, Barbara, what about a little bit of your journey? How people don't end up in these positions without a passion for what you're doing. So, how did you end up?
Right.
Your
spot? I have to say, I think a large part of my journey was really the pandemic. So, found myself kind of locked in a bit of an ivory tower and struggling with all of the issues and challenges that I saw around me, and heard about the work that United Power was doing. So got to a point in my life where it was like really time to take action, not just, speak the words. Mm-hmm. And what has really lit me up is it's work that has given me hope. So the work of United Power is really trying to address systemic problems, trying to work in community with people. So it's unique in my experience. It's not doing service to a community, but really trying to build up that community so that they can be empowered to solve their own problems. Mm-hmm. And then really standing alongside them. So again, I think that's part of, been my faith learning, but I never really knew how to, I think, put it into action. And have found this just an amazing way to do that, to really stand in community with people that are disadvantaged and trying to change their own situation.
And where did you go to school?
Where did I go to school? I did my undergraduate school was actually in a private college in Massachusetts, and then I did my graduate work at the University of Michigan. Oh, so beautiful. I'm a proud Wolverines fan, and I'll stand by that.
Now, how did you two connect?
So, Danny, I don't know if you want to take that.
But... Yeah, this is actually our first time meeting, which is so fun.
Oh, I'm so glad I could provide you with the meeting. Great.
Barbara, it's such a joy to have you here. Mm-hmm. We connected because I had a meeting with someone who was working with Metro IAF, which United Power is a part of. And so when I was looking for people to kind of speak to the work of CCHD, Barbara was the person that my contact had in mind. And United Power is one of our CCHD funded groups that I haven't gotten a chance to interact with a ton yet. And so it's such a joy to just be hearing the work that you do. Could you tell us just a little bit more about kind of what's going on at United Power right now?
Yeah, and we'll have to change that, Danny, and invite you, to get more involved. But we have basically 3 campaigns that we're working on right now. I think the biggest one where we're making some great progress, we sort of have put under the umbrella of reclaiming communities. But we have a goal of building 1,000 affordable homes on the west side of Chicago and 1,000 affordable homes on the south side of Chicago. So this has taken, it's long, slow work to really make the transformational change. But these are putting affordable homes into neighborhoods that have been, really disadvantaged and blighted by past history with real estate and contract buying and redlining. And I'm excited to say, I think we're expecting in the next 18 months to build somewhere around 180 units of housing, both home ownership and rental. So that's exciting. The other campaigns that we're really focused on and starting to do more work on is around mental health and criminal justice reform. So really working with our elected officials and the institutions in the city to find alternatives that when somebody has a mental health crisis, and again, whether that's, somebody in your own family or, maybe somebody on the street that the police are interacting with, give them a place where and an alternative to how to respond to that. So again, talking about really transforming lives over the long term, if the police have to, incarcerate somebody for mental illness, all of a sudden then they have, a criminal record. And really it's a mental health crisis. And so creating what they call crisis stabilization units and a place where the police can take those individuals to get the help that they need. So those are two of our biggest campaigns. And of course, the third one, and again, it's long, slow work, but very important, is gun safety. And how do we make all of our communities safer and reduce the amount of gun violence in the neighborhoods.
So, and then explain, Danielle, the campaign, Catholic Campaign for Human Development. How are they connecting with Barbara's projects? How do you connect?
Yeah, so United Power has been a CCHD-funded group in some capacity for quite a while, I believe. Do you know the number of years, Barbara?
I don't. We were founded in '97, and if I look at my notes, I think, it's been years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say since like the 2000s, so probably shortly after we really started work in the city.
And does United Power, do they look at advocacy in terms of groups unionizing? Is that United Power? Or
we have not been doing any work with groups unionizing.
Okay.
And I think one of the things, and again, that is really important to our work is that we're strictly nonpartisan. So we don't back candidates. Again, it's really working with the people in the community, building up community leaders so that they can advocate for themselves. So it's also not, sort of us advocating on behalf of somebody else. It's building up their individual power.
Good, thank you. We're going to take a little break, and Danielle will come back with you. I want to discuss with you different programs that we are supportive of through the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. We'll be back, WNDZ, 7:50 a.m., Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408. Mark Tracy sitting in here for Father Greg Sakowicz. You can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago, and we will be back with Danielle Beaudet, Barbara Manley, and another guest when we come back from our break. Please stay tuned.
Catholic Charities' Refugee Resettlement Program has been especially busy this year, assisting individuals and families who have fled dangerous situations in their homeland, including Afghanistan and the Ukraine. The Refugee Resettlement Team helps with everything they need to start to rebuild their lives in a new country, including housing, employment, clothing, food, English classes, and referrals for legal and immigration services. The refugees are tremendously grateful for the compassion and practical help they're receiving, and they're giving back and helping each other plan for a brighter, safer future. Volunteer opportunities are currently available for those who would like to be family mentors and tutors so children and adults can practice English. To learn more about these rewarding opportunities, call 312-655-7096. That's 312-655-7096.
This is year 44 for me teaching. When I started here, there were teachers here that had taught me when I was a student. Now I'm the old person. Right now, I teach junior high math. I love when kids find what I'm teaching to be fun and they get it. I see that light bulb go off and it's a thrill. People are always amazed. What? You're here for 44 years? It's hard for me to believe, frankly. I love what I do. Every summer I think, oh, I miss the classroom. Even on the weekends, I think I can't wait to get back on Monday and teach those quadratic equations.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
Join Catholic Charities on Friday, December 2nd for the 33rd Annual Spirit of St. Nicholas Ball at the Chicago Hilton. The Spirit of St. Nicholas Ball is one of the most elegant galas of the holiday season in Chicago, and proceeds provide critical funding for our programs and services into the new year. Families, friends, and work colleagues make a tradition out of gathering at this extraordinary black tie event to celebrate the Christmas season. Enjoy an opening reception, gourmet meal, and live entertainment courtesy of the Ken Arlen Orchestra, all in support of Catholic Charities. Don't miss this special night for a great cause on Friday, December 2nd. To purchase tickets for the Spirit of St. Nicholas Ball, visit catholiccharities.net/events or call 312-948-6963. That's 312-948-6963.
We're back. WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408. Or you can go to youtube.com/Catholic Chicago. Mark Teresi here sitting in for Father Greg Sakowicz. We're talking to Danielle Bodette, Program Coordinator with CCHD, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development in the Archdiocese of Chicago. And maybe, Danielle, as we move forward in our program, you said you've been with this campaign, with the position for 4 months. What have you learned in the 4 months? I imagine it's a lot more than you imagined it would be.
Yeah, it is certainly so much more than I imagined. I think the first thing that I learned is just, the importance of building relationships. This is such relational work. And yes, there's logistics of grant reviewing and, funding and all those logistics. But I think I've just learned so much about how to build relationships from both my supervisors here at the Archdiocese, but also mostly through our grantees. I'm constantly interacting with these people who have been doing community organizing for so long. And I've picked up so many skills from just listening how they communicate with me and how they communicate with their staff. And it's been a joy to learn from the experts.
And we're grateful you brought another guest who in the YouTube world is sitting right next to you, but I'm sure you're a bit distanced. Would you like to introduce our next guest?
Yes, this is Leone Bicchieri, and he is the executive director and founder of Working Family Solidarity. Thanks for being here, Leone. It's such a joy to see you again.
Really great to be with you.
Thank you. Now let's hear Jose, Leon, your connect with the campaign.
Yeah, so our organization, Working Family Solidarity, and in Spanish, Solidaridad de Familias Trabajadoras, we have a lot of Latino members. So we are supported by CCHD, by the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. So we're a grantee, and then not just receiving funding, but being supported by the Archdiocese, bringing us together with the other grantees, kind of collaborating, learning what other organizations are doing. We focus mainly on several communities on Chicago's west, southwest, and south sides. And probably 90 to 95% of our members are African American or Latino working families. Many of them are very low income. And we help them understand their labor rights and housing rights, and then also work together to create more good jobs and more affordable housing.
Now, Leona, your journey to this position, again, a position like yours, like Danielle's, I mean, you don't get there by accident. I mean, it's probably been part of your passion. What's a little bit of your background?
So my father's from Italy. My mother's from Mexico. That's the Leone Jose Bicchieri kind of back and forth Italian, Spanish part. A
lot of good food.
A
lot of good food.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you. But I grew up partly in the Midwest, mainly southern Wisconsin, and then also the Northwest. Spent some years in Washington State. And to cut it really short, I've worked in this kind of work, let's say movement for justice work, with a lot of religious organizations, with Witness for Peace in Central America many years ago. I worked with the then called National Interfaith Committee on Worker Justice, then changed its name to Interfaith Worker Justice. That's how I got to Chicago in 2000. And then I've been working for a number of years as the executive director, for almost 8 years, of a Chicago-based worker center. And then about 6 years ago, we formed Working Family Solidarity. I will say that as a youngster, I won't say we went to catechism and mass every Saturday and Sunday, but we certainly went sometimes. And, like any kid, I was glad we could get donuts sometimes. But other times, I mean, you're a little kid. But at other times, the Catholic social teachings that were talked about, they definitely had an influence on me. And my mom talked about those things. And, the option for the poor, the papal encyclicals on work, the dignity of work, respecting people from all backgrounds. So that had an effect, and we're having a good time. We got a lot of work to do, but we're really happy to be working for ultimately what we're calling equitable development in the city of Chicago.
Well, Leone, I'll start with you, and then I'll ask Danielle. Pope Francis, how does he fit into your work?
Well, I think some of the things that he's talked about, I kind of alluded to them, but the papal encyclicals on work, the dignity of the laborer, things like that in a sense we've heard of, a lot of us, since we were little kids. But I think as you become an adult, you really think about what those mean. And so it doesn't just mean, telling someone, hey, I'm not going to yell at you when you're working, but dignity includes a living wage. Dignity includes, not firing someone after 10 years if they've never missed a day of work, even though legally you could, but kind of respecting that person, the needs they have to have a basic income. So those are the kinds of things that I think have been impactful. And I think Pope Francis has done a good job of reminding us all, at least in some of the work that I do, around those things. And then maybe lastly, welcoming the immigrant and not having, discrimination against any worker.
Beautiful. Danielle, what about you? In terms of
that was a fantastic answer. So hard to follow up. But I think when a lot of people think of Pope Francis, they think, Laudato Si and environmental justice, and praise the Lord that has been put on the forefront of our mind in the Catholic world. I think additionally, Pope Francis has really been calling to mind all of what, past popes have been writing about, Rerum Novarum, Quod Anno, these other papal encyclicals that talk about, the right to a just wage and the right to work and all of these things. I'm so glad that there's a sense of calling these things to mind of what popes have been writing about for centuries. So very happy that Catholic social teaching is what we are, the spirit that we're working out of.
Great. And Leone, so the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, why is that an important partnership for you?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, we get a grant. We've gotten a grant every year for 4 years, and we're applying again this year to the National Catholic Campaign for Human Development. So, sometimes we want to shy away from talking about finances, but you have to pay bills and so on. So that's a very big help to us. And then again, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but it helps connect us to other grantees. We know of some of them, but we may not know them very well, or we may not know some at all. Sometimes it's been virtual in the last couple of years, but slowly getting back to more in person. And before COVID, they were in person. So it also helps connect us to other people doing similar work. We may focus more on housing, for example, and jobs. Another one may do a little more transportation, but we're working with the same kinds of working families, especially low-income working families. So it's been a great help in all of those different ways.
And you speak of something very important. Father Jim Close, the late Father Jim Close, who was my mentor at Mercy Home for Boys and Girls, said you can't do the ministry without the money. You just can't.
Yeah.
And Danielle, and you're spearheading this whole Catholic Campaign for Human Development collection. Do you want to provide our listeners and viewers with specifics, what they can look forward to, when the collection is? Go ahead. Why don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our collection is the weekend. Our collection is the weekend of November 19th and 20th. You will see a second collection at the church in the pews. If you're looking for other ways to contribute or donate, please visit CCHD Chicago, and you will see all of the many, many ways you can contribute to our campaign. We have a Give Central link, which is fairly easy to use. And on that website, you will also find my email in case there's any questions about, what we fund, how we fund it, how to donate. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
So give that online connect again for people. How can people contribute online?
Yeah, you can. You can go to our website, CCHD Chicago, and it'll take you to Give Central link if you hit make a donation. And that is how you can contribute online.
And Leonie, maybe before we end today, is there a story that sticks out in your mind in terms of, the help that you've given to folks that really has impacted you in terms of moving your mission forward?
Yeah, there's a lot. I'll give one that happened actually. It was just before the sort of COVID hit us, so it was 2 years ago or so. We were already receiving support from Catholic Campaign for Human Development, and one of our member leaders named Esmeralda de la Rosa, she lives right on the border of sort of back of the yards in West Inglewood, and she took it upon herself as she was getting to know us and becoming more of a leader member and developing her leadership. And she set up an immigration, essentially, workshop, asked me if I could help provide someone. And I found an immigration attorney that we work with, a Latina herself, who grew up in the Southwest side. And we went to this person's school early in the morning. Parents dropped off their kids, then they stayed, and they had this immigration workshop. And then it kind of evolved into also people wanting to know about wages and workers' compensation, accidents at work. And I'll finish with that, because what I really liked is Esmeralda had the idea. She set it up at the school. I literally did nothing. I called this person I knew and we went together, but Esmeralda set the whole thing up. So
beautiful.
That's what I really like, is seeing people develop that leadership.
Right. And that's a great way to end our program, because it shows the impact, Danielle, of what you're doing, and the impact also, Leonie, of what you're doing. Thank you so much, Danielle Baudet, Program Coordinator, CCHD in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Thank you, Leonie Jose Bicchieri. And I'm sure those holiday meals are wonderful that you celebrate with your Mexican and Italian heritage. Mark Tracy here, WNDZ 750 AM, Catholic Chicago. Thank you for listening. What a great program today. Don't forget Father Ryan, the Mass of Healing for those suffering with addiction, Wednesday, November 23rd at St. Linus. God bless you. Have a great day.